This Cancer new moon in the middle of a Mercury retrograde, as well as the cosmic cradle, also known as Barbalt's basket, is holding us to do powerful things. And Cancer's power is the power to feel, and my absolute favorite zodiac to reframe for leadership. Now, Cancer is more than the power to protect and the power to guard. It's the power to feel safe enough to actually feel. Yet most of us learned somewhere along the way that feeling safe meant staying behind a shell and hiding. In this first part of my new Cancer New Moon series, I break down why soft power isn't the opposite of strength. It is strength, and what becomes possible once your guard finally comes down. I'm Leslie Tagorda, a business astrologer and creator of the Astrobrand method, blending more than 20 years of brand strategy with the precision of astrology to help entrepreneurs and underrepresented leaders make their mark. So the other day I was going through my emails and I opened up an email from my favorite all-time EFT tapper, Jackie McDonald. We've done a lot of collaborations on my YouTube channel, so you might have seen her before. And in this email that I happened to open of Jackie's, she had a bunch of prompts that just really spoke deeply to my heart. And one of the prompts and questions that she asked that was so profound for me was, what used to hold me back isn't holding me back anymore because, okay, so let's digest this a little bit, because this question, what used to hold me back but no longer holds me back, is such a Cancerian truth. Because when we think about what has been holding us back, right, and she also teaches leaders and entrepreneurs like you and me, what used to hold us back usually comes from a place of fear, a place of hiding, a place of emotional insecurity. And as we all go through our life, our challenges, our evolution, we make these small changes that it's really important to reflect upon. And upon making those changes, you all of a sudden, when you stop to notice, you realize that you have created a shift. And there's things that you do now that no longer hold you back. I know for me in my life recently, especially after my cancer diagnosis, after learning to speak up for myself, after, really coming face to face with like, what is my mortality and what am I here to do in my limited capacity and energy? I have really become unafraid to have difficult conversations. Difficult conversations used to I used to be, no longer. I used to be such an avoider in my personal life and my business life. If I had an email come through from a client that I knew things were like maybe going sideways with, I wouldn't even open it. Like I would just kind of like sit and simmer and like just drain all my energy while I was waiting in my inbox. And like with my family, with my husband, I would just like wait until like things just really blew out of control before I had that difficult conversation. But in Jackie's email, as she was asking that question, what used to hold me back that doesn't hold me back anymore? I was like, oh my goodness, I'm not afraid, right? There's the key word right there. I'm no longer afraid to have difficult conversations. I can have difficult conversations because ultimately, when I have a conversation that may be difficult, but it happens in a timely manner, right when it needs to happen, it doesn't take that drain of that energy like that email that might be sitting in my inbox waiting for it to open simply because I don't want to face it and I don't want to avoid it. And so this question, I want you to take to heart this question, especially because we are in the midst of a Mercury retrograde in the emotional sign of Cancer, right? So if you listen to that last series of Mercury retrograde in Cancer, Mercury retrograde in Cancer is absolutely about how do we reroute our emotional intelligence. And so our feelings, they're not just like this personal thing. We have to really tend to our feelings because our feelings, especially in Cancer, especially with our own moon sign, is running the show. It's literally our emotional gatekeepers until we can bring that unconscious feeling of insecurity, that unconscious feeling of doubt or fear, whatever you want to call it. I feel insecurity is great. right? We bring it to the surface, we look at it, why are we doing this? And then we can move through. Now, when we do this and recognize this with like consciousness, oftentimes that gap closes much more quickly than if we keep on, kicking that bucket down the line and not wanting to face it. And so, particularly with this new moon in Cancer, in the midst of Mercury retrograde, and especially since this new moon in Cancer happens right after that midpoint of Mercury retrograde, that where Mercury meets the sun and the moon. I'll be talking about that in that second part where we look at the astrology of this Cancer new moon, and that combust is really that recognition, that awakening. So hopefully you can use this Cancer new moon to see, I now see what used to hold me back is no longer holding me back. And understanding, what is it? Like I was mentioning, because difficult conversations used to be really, hard for me. The things that would hold me back from having those difficult conversations was, am I going to give all my power away? Am I not going to be heard? Am I going to, be criticized? That criticizing has been huge. But with my cancer diagnosis, with going through this book editing process, I've learned to take criticism in a much more healthy way, in terms of like, everybody just wants to have the best outcome. Like when I get edits from my book editor, I just sent in the final edits yesterday to the publisher. The book is now off to print. Oh my gosh, Astrology for Changemakers is now off to print. I'm recording this on July 10th. And so this is really exciting. But that process of having to trust, having to take that criticism, having to answer and like really express my needs right away, that really helped me strengthen my insecurities around, am I, not good enough? Ultimately, that's what criticism comes down to. But it's not about I'm not good enough. What I realized, my Mercury retrograde rerouting recognition, it's not that I'm not good enough. It's that we're all trying to make things better. And so for you, what is this reframe? What is this soft power that you have, you're growing, that you're recognizing? And again, that recognition is so huge, because once you recognize something, you start to recognize it more quickly when you ultimately fall back into a past pattern. And no judgment, falling into past patterns, things take time. But once you have that recognition of like, what was that old insecurity that you are now replacing with that secure feeling, that safety feeling, that is ultimate soft power, because you're allowing yourself to actually feel the feeling instead of protecting, quote unquote, protecting, because this is not really protecting, from hiding or running away, right? That's the shell crab. Now, emotional security isn't the thing of like never feeling hurt, right? Like difficult conversations, you can still feel hurt, you can still feel sensitive, but it's the ability to feel secure that that you can recover, that you can trust yourself, that you can repair, that you can keep moving on. If you remember our Mercury retrograde episode a while back, Mercury retrograde was asking us to recognize, know who you are and how you're meant to lead from a confident and joyful center. Like recognition also means like how you feel. Mercury retrograde also asked us to reclaim, to feel secure and to take risks, and enabling that secure feeling with play and fun and joy. Mercury retrograde also asked us to repair, to reach out with others with whom you want to reconnect, and maybe take accountability, maybe apologize, maybe not defend yourself for everything. And so this Mercury retrograde in Cancer is teaching us all of these wonderfully powerful soft skills, and more than soft skills, they are truly Cancerian soft power. Now, in my book, my upcoming book, Astrology for Changemakers, like I said, I just love talking about Cancer because Cancer is like the foundation. It's if we are not feeling open, if we are not feeling accepted, if we are not feeling we have a sense of belonging, if we're not feeling safe, lasting change does not stick. It does not happen. When we're not feeling soft enough to let our guard down, for that shell to crack open and for our roots to grow, we can't make change. And so in Astrology for Change Makers, I really expand on the power of Cancer to feel that its highest leadership expression is about not just creating emotional safety for ourselves that allow us to break free and do the big things that move forward, but it's also about the inner work, about creating and knowing how to nourish ourselves, nurture ourselves, care for ourselves so that we can create our own emotional security. Let me tell you, emotional security and safety is not going to come from the outside. It's going to come from the inside. So, if this idea of soft power and leading with your own emotional intelligence resonates with you, this is exactly what I'm unpacking in Astrology for Changemakers. And of course, it's available for pre order now. And you can click that link in the description below. Pre orders matter so much. So let me know if you go ahead and pre order that book. On my website, there's a lot of pre order bonuses. So if you go to starpower.com/changemakers, upload your receipt, and you'll get a ton of pre order bonuses to go along with your book. So, one of the reasons why I love working with astrology and leadership is because astrology shows us our parallel path, the things that we need to awaken and quote unquote heal within ourselves so that we can take bigger outward impact, take bigger steps, do bigger things, show up in a more vibrant and resonant way. And so when we think about Cancer, of course, we talked a lot about that inner awakening, the things that we need to know that hold us back, the emotional security that we need to create and nurture within ourselves so that we can stop gatekeeping our aligned actions. But what about for my Cancer leaders, the Cancerian, and we all have Cancer in our chart somewhere. I'll talk about that in a following part. But wherever we have Cancer in our chart is asking us to take that Cancerian action, both the inner action of creating more emotional security within, but also creating the outer security for others, creating safety and belonging for our loved ones, for our family, for our communities, for our clients. Now, outer impact for leadership with Cancer is again about creating belonging. That idea of belonging is this idea of that everyone within is accepted. But just like the Cancerian divine mother who invites somebody into their home, there are certain expectations when you are going to be a good guest in one's home. And so that creating a belonging doesn't mean just like anything goes. You can just be a slob and show up at Divine Mother's house. Absolutely not. There are rules. Take off your shoes at the door, put your dishes away. If you make a mess or tinkle on the toilet, you clean it up. These are unsaid expectations. And so in our Cancerian parts of our business, this is where we create these boundaries, where we create expectations, where we are getting clear on how to protect the spaces where we create acceptance and belonging. Because ultimately, these places of safety and belonging, whether this be like maybe in a group program that you have, or even with those sacred spaces of where you're meeting with your clients, these places need to be protected. These are sacred spaces where everybody has their role. And as the Cancerian leader, it is, yes, about protecting those spaces by being explicitly clear of what roles and responsibilities are, and then updating them as you need them. And so, of course, Cancer energy in leadership is so beautiful. And I'm so glad that as we are moving forward and evolving in our leadership and into the age of Aquarius, that the emotional labor of Cancer is now being valued. So, how can you bring more Cancerian energy into your life? I'd love to know what lands for you. Share with me in the comments about your experiences with emotional security, creating safety, creating belonging, and how you want to use your soft power in your leadership and work. By the way, if you want to go even deeper into your own chart, that's exactly what my upcoming book, Astrology for Changemakers, is built for. It's available for pre order now at all of your favorite book retailers. Click the link in the description. And if you want more astrology for leadership, business, and branding, make sure you subscribe. I'll see you soon. So thank you again. If this episode, if this podcast has touched your heart, please share it with others. Please leave me a rating and review so we can reach the hearts of even more change makers like you.